The ash-gray sand stretched endlessly beneath twin pale moons that cast an eerie glow across the barren landscape. Eleuthera lay motionless, her body broken and bleeding upon the cold desert floor. Her once proud uniform hung in tatters around her slender frame, the remnants of restraints still visible on her wrists where the shackles had cut deep. The wind howled mournfully across the wasteland, whipping strands of her silvery hair across her face. Fragments of memory flashed behind her half-closed eyes, the stern faces of the Zoluvian High Council, their voices merging into a singular condemnation as they pronounced her sentence. Traitor, defector, sympathizer. Words that had once been the most grievous of insults in her culture now defined her existence. She remembered the sensation of falling, the burning friction of atmosphere against her transport pod as they jettisoned her toward this desolate exile planet with only enough supplies to prolong her suffering. 3 days she had wandered. 3 days without water, her body's reserves depleted, her alien physiology pushed beyond its limits. Now, as she felt the last of her strength ebbing away, Eleuthera decided it was time. She would not fight any longer. This barren place would become her tomb, unmarked and unremembered. Eleuthera closed her eyes, ready to surrender to the darkness that had been stalking her since her arrival. She exhaled slowly, preparing for her final breath. Then, unexpectedly, she felt something, the gentle pressure of a hand cradling her head, lifting it slightly from the abrasive sand. A voice, speaking in a language she recognized from intelligence briefings, cut through the silence. "Don't die. I'm here to help you." The words made little sense to her fading consciousness. Help? From whom? With tremendous effort, Eleuthera forced her eyes open. A human face hovered above hers, the face of her ancestral enemy. Their species had been locked in bitter interstellar conflict for generations. His skin was tan from exposure to harsh elements, his eyes an unusual shade of green that reminded her of the sacred forests on her homeworld. He looked concerned, not hostile. "Can you understand me?" the human asked, his voice carrying through the thin atmosphere. Eleuthera tried to speak, but her parched throat produced only a rasp. She attempted to move away from him, an instinctive reaction born from years of conditioning, but her body refused to respond. "Easy now," he said, reaching for something at his side. "A water container. My name is Marcus Vale. I'm going to help you. This is water. Drink slowly." The cool liquid against her cracked lips was the most exquisite sensation Eleuthera had experienced in days. She drank greedily until Marcus pulled the container away. "Slowly," he repeated. "Too much at once will make you sick." As the water revived her slightly, Eleuthera's senses sharpened. She saw that the human, Marcus, wore no military insignia. His clothing was practical, designed for planetary exploration rather than combat. A researcher, perhaps, or a scavenger. "We need shelter," Marcus said, glancing at the darkening horizon. "Night's coming, and temperatures drop dangerously low here. Can you stand?" Eleuthera tried and failed. Without hesitation, Marcus slipped his arms beneath her and lifted her against his chest. The proximity to a human, the hereditary enemy of her people, should have filled her with revulsion. Instead, all she felt was the desperate gratitude of the dying offered unexpected salvation. He carried her toward a rock formation in the distance, his breathing steady despite her weight. As they moved, something inside Eleuthera's tattered sleeve shifted, revealing a partial tattoo on her forearm, an intricate pattern of interlocking geometric shapes that formed the emblem of the Zoluvian elite guard, infamous for their ruthless efficiency in eliminating human settlements during the height of the war. Marcus paused momentarily when he saw the marking. His eyes widened with recognition, and Eleuthera felt his arms tense beneath her. For a moment, she was certain he would drop her, leave her to die, as countless Zoluvians had abandoned countless humans on battlefields across the stars. Instead, his jaw tightened, and he continued walking. As consciousness began to slip away again, Eleuthera's fingers weakly clutched at his sleeve. "Don't! Let me die!" she whispered, the words foreign on her tongue. "I won't," came his steady reply, though doubt now clouded his expression. "I won't." The makeshift shelter provided little comfort beyond protection from the wind, but it was enough. Marcus had converted a small geological research tent into a survival pod, using thermal reflectors to trap heat and create a space barely large enough for two bodies. Outside, the desert night had transformed into a freezing hell as temperatures plummeted far below what either of their species would consider tolerable. Eleuthera had slept fitfully for hours after Marcus administered a universal healing stimulant from his medkit. The injection had accelerated her body's natural recovery processes, but she remained weak, her silver-tinged skin still lacking its characteristic luminescence. Marcus sat across from her, maintaining a careful distance while monitoring her condition. He had removed his outer jacket, revealing well-muscled arms marked with scars, evidence of a life not spent entirely in academic pursuit. When Eleuthera finally opened her eyes fully, he offered more water without speaking. She accepted it, studying him over the rim of the container. "Why?" she finally asked, her voice hoarse but functional. "Why what?" Marcus replied, adjusting the settings on a small heating unit between them. "Why save me? You recognized what I am." Marcus met her gaze directly. "I'm not a soldier anymore, if I ever truly was one. I don't see a Zoluvian when I look at you. I see someone who needed help." Eleuthera absorbed this, searching for deception in his features, but finding none. Still, caution prevailed. She had been trained too thoroughly to trust easily, especially a human. "What brings a human to this place?" she asked, gesturing weakly toward the desolation beyond their shelter. "This is nowhere. That's precisely why I'm here. I'm surveying uninhabited planets for archaeological remnants of the old ones. The precursor civilization," Marcus explained. "Sites like this, far from established territories, are more likely to contain undisturbed artifacts." Eleuthera nodded slightly. The pursuit of knowledge about the enigmatic civilization that had preceded both humans and Zoluvians was one of the few areas where their species occasionally found common ground. A sudden howl of wind rocked their shelter, driving a wave of fine sand through the smallest gaps in the fabric. Both of them instinctively curled inward against the assault, and in doing so, found themselves closer than before. "Storm's getting worse," Marcus observed, checking a portable atmospheric analyzer. "The particulate count is rising. This could last for days." Eleuthera's expression tightened. "I won't survive days. Not without proper medical attention." "You will," Marcus insisted. "I've seen worse injuries in the field." The temperature continued to drop as night deepened. Despite the heating unit's efforts, cold began to penetrate their shelter. Marcus hesitated briefly before moving closer to Eleuthera, offering shared body heat without words. She stiffened initially, but pragmatism overcame prejudice, and she allowed the proximity. "Your species runs warmer than mine," she observed quietly. "Evolutionary adaptation to Earth's variable climate zones," he replied. "Your homeworld is more temperate, isn't it?" The simple exchange of scientific facts somehow bridged the gap between them, making the closeness less uncomfortable. They sat in silence for a time, listening to the wind's fury. "They exiled you," Marcus said eventually. "Not a question." Eleuthera's eyes fixed on the tent wall. "Yes." "For what?" "For betraying the Empire." She offered nothing more, and Marcus didn't press. As the night wore on and the storm intensified, sleep became necessary for both of them. They arranged themselves awkwardly in the confined space, back to back, each aware of the strange circumstance that had made enemies into reluctant companions. Just before dawn, as Eleuthera shifted in her sleep, something fell from a hidden pocket in her torn clothing, a small data crystal that glinted faintly in the dim light of the heating unit. Marcus, awakened by her movement, noticed it and reached for it with natural curiosity. Eleuthera's hand shot out with surprising speed, catching his wrist before his fingers could touch the crystal. Her eyes were suddenly alert, a flash of fear visible in them. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, withdrawing his hand immediately. "I just wanted to understand why you're here. What happened to you?" Eleuthera clutched the crystal protectively. "Some knowledge is dangerous," she said softly. "Not to me. I told you, I'm not part of the military anymore. Whatever you did." "What I didn't do," she corrected sharply, then fell silent, internal conflict evident on her face. As the heating unit pulsed between them, casting rhythmic shadows across her features, Eleuthera's mind drifted back to that fateful day. The military briefing room aboard the Zoluvian flagship. The strategic display showing a human settlement, primarily scientific researchers and their families, established on a border moon. The orders had been explicit: total elimination, no survivors, to serve as a warning to human expansion efforts. She had stood before her commander, her distinguished service record granting her the right to speak freely. "There are children there," she had said. "Non combatants. This violates our own military code." The commander's response had been ice cold. "The code serves the Empire, not the other way around. You will carry out your orders, Captain." But she hadn't. Instead, she had sent a coded warning through channels she knew human intelligence monitored. The settlement had evacuated before her squadron arrived. No lives lost, but her career, her honor, her very existence as a Zoluvian, all forfeit when the deception was discovered. The memory faded as Marcus spoke again. "Whatever you're running from, I understand. I have my own ghosts." Something in his tone made Eleuthera look at him more carefully. What kind of archaeologist carries military-grade medical supplies and knows how to survive in environments like this? A faint, bitter smile crossed his face. The kind who used to design weapons before his conscience caught up with him. The confession hung between them, unexpected and revealing. As the storm began to abate outside, something shifted in their awkward alliance. Not trust precisely, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. When dawn finally broke, casting wan light through the thinning clouds of sand, they emerged from the shelter to survey their surroundings. The landscape had been transformed, with new dunes formed where flat ground had been before, and previously buried features now exposed by the wind's relentless sculpting. It was one such newly revealed structure that caught Marcus's attention, a gleam of artificial material protruding from a dune approximately half a kilometer from their position. "There," he said, pointing. "That's not natural formation." Eleuthera narrowed her eyes, focusing on the distant object. "No," she agreed. "That's Zoluvian architecture." They approached cautiously, Eleuthera moving slowly due to her injuries, but insisting on walking under her own power. As they drew closer, more of the structure became visible. A bunker entrance, its doorway partially obstructed by sand but unmistakably of Zoluvian military design. "An outpost?" Marcus asked, keeping his distance. Eleuthera studied the markings on the exposed section. "Research facility," she corrected. "Classified designation. It shouldn't be here." "You didn't know about it?" "I was elite guard, not scientific division," she explained. "But facilities like this, they're typically used for projects the Empire doesn't want widely known, even among its own people." Marcus approached the entrance, examining the control panel beside it. "Can you open it?" Eleuthera hesitated. "My authorization codes were deleted with my exile." "But you know how the system works?" he pressed. "We need supplies, proper medical equipment. This place might have both." She considered this, then stepped forward. "Stand back. If there are automated security measures still active, they'll target non-Zoluvian biosignatures first." Marcus complied, watching as Eleuthera manipulated the ancient but still functional control panel. After several attempts and muttered phrases in her native language that his translator couldn't process, the door slid open with a groan of protesting mechanics. Stale air rushed out, carrying the scent of abandonment. Eleuthera stepped through first, her posture automatically shifting to a combat-ready stance despite her weakened condition. Marcus followed, activating a portable light source. The facility's emergency power systems activated at their presence, illuminating a laboratory complex that had clearly been evacuated in haste. Equipment lay scattered across workstations, and data screens frozen in mid-display suggested whatever work had been conducted here had been abandoned abruptly. Medical Bay would be this way. Eleuthera indicated, moving down a corridor with the certainty of someone familiar with standard Imperial architectural layouts. The medical chamber they discovered contained equipment far more sophisticated than Marcus's field kit. Eleuthera immediately recognized a cellular regenerator and activated it, calibrating the settings for her species biology. "This will accelerate my healing," she explained as she positioned herself beneath the device. "But it will take time." While the machine worked, Marcus explored further into the complex, discovering a communications center with equipment still partially functional. As he examined the system, trying to determine if it could be repaired, a proximity alert suddenly blared throughout the facility. "Eleuthera," he called, rushing back to the medical bay. "Something's triggered the perimeter sensors." She disconnected herself from the regenerator, moving with notably improved agility. "How many?" "I can't tell. The system's only partially operational." He handed her a small sidearm he'd found during his exploration. "Can you use this?" Eleuthera took the weapon with practiced ease. "I was born with one of these in my hand," she replied grimly. They moved to the command center, where Eleuthera accessed the surveillance system. The grainy images revealed what they both feared. A small craft had landed beyond the ridge, and figures were moving toward the facility. The resolution was too poor to identify them clearly, but they moved with military precision. "Bounty hunters," Marcus guessed. "Or mercenaries." Eleuthera's expression hardened. "They're here for me. The Empire doesn't leave loose ends." "Or they could be human forces," Marcus countered. "This facility would be valuable intelligence. Either way, we're trapped." Marcus studied the facility's layout on a schematic display. "Maybe not. Look, there's a hangar bay connected to this complex. If there's still a shuttle." They made their way through the winding corridors to the hangar, maintaining vigilance for any sign of intrusion. The massive doors were sealed, but Eleuthera quickly bypassed the security, revealing a cavernous space beyond. There, partially covered by protective sheeting, sat a Zoluvian short-range shuttle. Its sleek design spoke of military efficiency, though this model appeared to be a scientific variant, equipped for research missions rather than combat. "Can it fly?" Marcus asked, approaching the vessel with professional interest. Eleuthera was already at the external diagnostic panel. "Power core is in standby mode. Minimal fuel reserves, but enough for orbital exit. Navigation systems." She frowned. "Damaged but reparable." "How long?" "Hours, not days. But those hunters will be inside before then." As if summoned by her words, an alarm sounded from the command center. The intruders had breached the outer doors. "I need to access the main database," Eleuthera said suddenly. "Before we leave." "What?" "What?" Marcus demanded, already beginning pre-flight checks on the shuttle. "Because I need to know what they were doing here. This facility shouldn't exist." She moved toward the exit. "Keep working on the shuttle. I'll return quickly." Before Marcus could protest, she was gone, moving with the silent efficiency that had once made the elite guards so feared. She navigated back to the central laboratory, where the main database terminal stood. The facility systems recognized her biometric signature. Exile had not erased that, at least, and granted access. What she discovered sent ice through her veins. Project files, research summaries, medical analyses, all centered around biological weapons designed specifically to target human genetic markers while leaving Zoluvians unaffected. The development dates indicated the project had been active during the same period she had been ordered to eliminate the human settlement, part of a coordinated strategy to clear specific territories for Zoluvian expansion. The plans she had unknowingly disrupted were far more extensive than she'd realized. Her act of conscience had delayed not just one massacre, but potentially a genocide. As she downloaded vital data to her personal crystal, Eleuthera heard footsteps approaching. She ducked behind a workstation just as two figures entered the laboratory. One human, one Zoluvian, both wearing the distinctive armor of professional mercenaries. The unholy alliance confirmed her worst fears. These weren't official military forces from either side, but hired killers who would sell their services to the highest bidder. "Bioscanners show recent activity," the human mercenary said. "Someone's been here within the last hour." Spread out, the Zoluvian ordered. Check every chamber. Remember, the Empire wants the traitor alive, if possible. Eleuthera waited until they moved deeper into the complex before silently making her way back toward the hangar. She found Marcus not inside the shuttle as expected, but crouched behind a fuel container, weapon drawn. 3 more entered through a secondary access point. He whispered when she reached him. They're searching methodically. We're running out of time. The shuttle, ready enough. Navigation systems are patched. It'll fly, but not gracefully. Eleuthera showed him the data crystal. This facility was developing biological weapons against your people. Targeted extinction. Marcus's expression darkened. I wish I could say I'm surprised. We need to destroy this place before we leave. Everything here. The self-destruct systems are likely offline after so long, Marcus reasoned. Then we overload the power core manually. I know how. Their planning was interrupted by weapons fire from the corridor. The mercenaries had encountered each other and, in the confusion, exchanged shots. The commotion provided cover as Eleuthera and Marcus made their final preparations, setting the shuttle's systems for rapid departure while Eleuthera reconfigured the facility's power distribution to create a catastrophic overload. 10 minutes, she announced, finalizing the sequence. We need to be clear by then. They boarded the shuttle, Marcus taking the navigator's position while Eleuthera assumed the pilot's role. As the engines hummed to life, the hangar doors remained closed, the override sequence interrupted by the facility's deteriorating systems. Manual release, Eleuthera said, rising from her seat. There's an emergency lever mechanism. I'll go, Marcus insisted. You're the better pilot. Before she could argue, he was moving toward the exit hatch. Eleuthera watched on the shuttle's external cameras as Marcus sprinted to the control panel near the massive doors. He located the manual release and began the laborious process of engaging it, fighting against years of disuse and corrosion. The doors began to part, revealing the desert landscape beyond, just as the mercenaries burst into the hangar, weapons raised. Eleuthera activated the shuttle's defensive shields, but they were designed for space debris, not weapons fire. Through the view screen, she saw Marcus take cover behind a supply container as energy blasts struck around him. The doors were only halfway open, not enough for the shuttle to pass through safely. Marcus, she called through the external communication system. Get back to the shuttle. He shook his head, gesturing for her to prepare for takeoff. Then, in a burst of movement, he sprinted toward the door mechanism again, fully exposing himself to enemy fire. A blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around, but he managed to reach the controls and complete the emergency opening sequence. The massive doors groaned open to their full extent. Eleuthera watched in horror as Marcus stumbled, clutching his wounded shoulder, mercenaries advancing on his position. Her hands hovered over the controls. She could launch now, escape while they were focused on him. It would be the rational choice, the survival choice. Instead, she activated the shuttle's forward thrusters at minimal power, enough to move it toward the doors while keeping the rear loading ramp accessible. As the vessel advanced slowly, she raced to the back, opening the ramp. Marcus, she shouted above the engine noise. Run. He turned, saw the approaching shuttle, and summoned his remaining strength. The mercenaries realized her plan and redirected their fire toward the vessel, energy blasts sparking against its hull. Eleuthera extended her hand from the ramp as Marcus ran alongside, his movements hampered by his injury. Their fingers connected, and with desperate strength, she pulled him aboard as the shuttle cleared the hangar doors. The vessel accelerated sharply upward once they were clear, Eleuthera returning to the controls while Marcus secured the ramp. Below them, the mercenaries emerged from the facility, still firing uselessly at the rapidly ascending shuttle. 4 minutes until detonation, Eleuthera announced, her fingers dancing across the navigation console. We need distance. Marcus slumped into the co-pilot's seat, applying pressure to his wound. Will the explosion be visible from orbit? It will be visible from a next star system, she replied grimly. The shuttle broke through the planet's atmosphere, the blue-black of space spreading before them like an ocean of possibilities. Behind them, the curvature of the exile planet diminished in size. Then came the flash, a brilliant eruption of light and energy as the facility's power core detonated, vaporizing everything within a 2-kilometer radius. The shock wave raced outward, catching the lower portion of their ascent trajectory and buffeting the shuttle violently. Eleuthera fought the controls, compensating for the turbulence as the vessel threatened to spin out of control. For several heart-stopping moments, it seemed they might share the fate of the destroyed facility. Then the shuttle stabilized, continuing its path into the void. Silence filled the cockpit, broken only by the hum of systems and Marcus's labored breathing. Eleuthera engaged the autopilot before turning to assess his injury. "The wound is severe," she said, examining the energy blast's entry point. "But the medical supplies we gathered should help." As she applied treatment, Marcus watched her with an expression of mixed pain and wonder. "You could have left me," he said quietly. Eleuthera's hands paused momentarily. "Yes. Why didn't you?" She resumed her work, focusing intensely on the task. "The same reason you didn't leave me to die in the desert, I suppose." The shuttle continued its journey through the darkness of space, two fugitives from different worlds united by choices that had set them against their own kinds. Marcus's condition stabilized under Eleuthera's care, though the wound would require proper medical attention eventually. When she had done all she could, Eleuthera returned to the pilot's seat, studying the navigational options. "Where can we go?" Marcus asked, joining her despite her protests that he should rest. "Both our governments would consider us enemies now." Eleuthera indicated a set of coordinates. "There's a neutral station in the Proxima sector. Originally established as a scientific outpost to study a stellar phenomenon, it's evolved into a haven for those seeking distance from the conflict. Will they take us in?" "They accept anyone who abides by their non-aggression principles," she said. "Many there have passed they prefer not to discuss." Marcus studied the coordinates. "It's at the edge of mapped space." "Yes, far from both Zoluvian and human jurisdiction." She looked at him directly. "Unless you'd prefer, I find a human outpost for you." He shook his head. "No, I left that life behind when I resigned my commission. The military research division, what we were developing." He trailed off, the memory clearly painful. "You were a weapons designer," Eleuthera stated, pieces falling into place. "Engineer for the Advanced Warfare Division," Marcus confirmed. "I specialized in planetary bombardment systems. More efficient ways to destroy Zoluvian infrastructure." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Two military specialists, each having rejected their role in the machinery of mutual destruction, now fugitives together. "I never thought I would trust a human with my life," Eleuthera admitted softly. "Yet here we are." "I never imagined I'd risk mine for a Zoluvian," Marcus replied with a faint smile. "Life is full of surprises." They set course for the neutral station, the journey estimated to take 3 days at their current power levels. During that time, confined in the small shuttle, they had little choice but to learn more about each other. Hesitantly at first, then with increasing openness, they shared stories of their respective worlds, their training, their gradual disillusionment with the conflict that had consumed so much of both civilizations. "The most frustrating part," Marcus said during their final approach to the station, "is that both sides have forgotten what started the war in the first place. 3 generations of hatred, and for what? Control of the precursor artifacts," Eleuthera reminded him. "Or at least, that was the original pretext. Artifacts we barely understand from a civilization that vanished millennia ago." Marcus shook his head. "How many have died for the possibility of power neither side knows how to use?" As the neutral station came into view, a sprawling structure of interconnected modules surrounding a central hub, Eleuthera initiated contact protocols. Their arrival was met with caution but not hostility. After a brief exchange and scan of their vessel, they were granted permission to dock. Station security met them as they disembarked, but the questioning was perfunctory. As Eleuthera had predicted, the station's population included many who valued privacy regarding their origins. Marcus's injury earned them immediate passage to the medical facility, where human and non-human practitioners worked side by side. Dr. Sinera, a Triaxin physician with experience treating multiple species, examined Marcus's wound while Eleuthera watched anxiously. Energy weapon damage, partially treated, the doctor observed. You did well with limited resources. He'll recover fully with proper care. And my companion? Marcus asked, gesturing toward Eleuthera. She was severely injured before I found her. Dr. Sinera conducted a thorough examination of Eleuthera, noting the accelerated healing from the regenerator, but also identifying underlying issues that required attention. Malnutrition, cellular degradation consistent with extreme environmental exposure, residual trauma to multiple systems, the physician listed. You both require rest and treatment. They were assigned quarters in the residential section, modest but comfortable accommodations that seemed luxurious after their ordeal. The station operated on a contribution system. Residents offered skills or labor in exchange for necessities, with currency used primarily for luxury items and external trade. For the first week, they focused on recovery, adjusting to the rhythms of station life and the strange experience of existing in a truly neutral environment. Neither human nor Zeluvian culture dominated here. Instead, a pragmatic blend of multiple species approaches had evolved, emphasizing coexistence and mutual benefit. On the 8th day, as Marcus's wound had healed enough for him to move comfortably, they ventured to the station's central garden, a magnificent biodome where plants from dozens of worlds created a tranquil oasis. Eleuthera stopped at the entrance, momentarily overwhelmed by the abundance of life after the desolation of the exile planet. I'd forgotten, she said quietly, how many shades of green exist in the universe. Marcus watched her expression as she reached out to touch the delicate frond of a fern-like plant. Something in her wonder connected deeply with him, reinforcing the growing realization that beneath the physiological differences and cultural barriers, their fundamental experiences of beauty, pain, and hope were remarkably similar. They walked together through winding paths, occasionally meeting other residents who nodded in greeting without prying. Near a small pond at the garden's center, they paused to rest on a bench carved from synthetic stone. I accessed the station's information network yesterday, Marcus said. The data you recovered from the facility about the biological weapons program, it could be valuable to certain parties. Eleuthera tensed. Are you suggesting we sell it? Use it as leverage? No, he said firmly. I'm suggesting we release it, anonymously, through secure channels, to both governments simultaneously. Let them see how their military divisions were operating without oversight, the lines they were willing to cross. She considered this. It wouldn't end the conflict. Probably not, but it might force a moment of reflection. Perhaps save some lives. He looked at her directly. It's more than either of us managed before. Eleuthera nodded slowly. When I warned that settlement, I didn't think beyond that moment. I just couldn't be part of such slaughter. That's how it starts, Marcus said. One decision, one moment of refusing to participate. As weeks passed, they integrated further into station life. Eleuthera's technical knowledge proved valuable in the Environmental Control Division, while Marcus's engineering skills were welcomed in the maintenance sector. They established a routine, separate but connected, each building a new identity free from military ranks and expectations. Yet the connection between them continued to evolve. What had begun as mutual survival became genuine companionship, then something deeper. Their shared experience as exiles created a foundation of understanding that neither had found with others of their own kind. 3 months after their arrival, they stood together on an observation deck, watching a stellar phenomenon that the station had been built to study, a binary star system whose component stars exchanged matter in a spectacular cosmic dance of light and energy. It's beautiful, Eleuthera said, the colored light playing across her silver-tinged features. Yes, Marcus agreed, though his gaze had shifted from the celestial display to her face. I never expected to find beauty here, at the edge of everything. She turned to him, recognizing the deeper meaning in his words. I never expected to find peace with a human standing beside me. Is that what we found? Peace. Perhaps something better, she replied softly. A beginning. Neither could say who moved first, but the distance between them closed as naturally as two stars drawn together by gravity. Their embrace carried the weight of all they had endured, the war, the exile, the flight, and transformed it into something neither had dared hope for, the promise of a shared future. Later, as they walked back to their quarters hand in hand, they passed through the station's main atrium where new arrivals were being processed. A public news feed displayed recent developments from both Zoluvian and human territories, continuing tensions, political maneuvering, but also, remarkably, the first tentative discussions of diplomatic relations in a generation. Do you think it will last? Eleuthera asked. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I don't know, but I have to believe change is possible. Look at us. She smiled, a gesture she had adopted from him over their months together. Two exiles who found each other. Two people who chose a different path, he corrected. As they stood before the threshold of their shared quarters, Eleuthera looked up at the artificial sky of the station, then back to Marcus's face. She remembered the moment she had closed her eyes on that desolate planet. Certain death awaited her. Instead, she had opened them to find an unexpected hand reaching out, not just offering survival, but eventually redemption. When I was abandoned, I thought my story had ended, she said. I never imagined it was only beginning. Marcus drew her close, his arms encircling her in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. Sometimes we have to lose everything we thought mattered to discover what truly does. Together they crossed the threshold, two souls once defined by conflict neither fully believed in, now united in the simple, revolutionary act of choosing compassion over hatred, hope over despair, love over the weight of history. And in that choice, they found what countless warriors on both sides had never discovered amidst the carnage of interstellar war. The profound truth that genuine peace begins not with treaties between worlds, but with understanding between individuals brave enough to see beyond the boundaries they were born to uphold.